Hi there, Flegg here, Ethical Property Partners. We help sophisticated property investors take their property investing to the next level. And in this video, I'm going to be talking to you about leasing your properties to charities. Now, we've been doing this for about 6 years now. It's a fantastic strategy because there are benefits for the charity, but there are also benefits for us as investors. You may have heard me talking about our Stepping Stones program. That's our project whereby we house the homeless. In fact, we've now exceeded over 160,000 nights where a homeless person has slept in one of our beds rather than on the street or sofa surfing. And so I'm very proud of that project. And in this episode, I'm going to tell you why it works so well. So let's look at it from the charity's perspective. Now, we've got a member of our team who spends hours every week reaching out to, contacting, building relationships with national charities. We reach out to national charities, we reach out to regional charities, and also really small local charities. We build relationships with them, and this is the crucial part. We supply properties to them to order. So we start with the charity. Where do they want the house? How big do they want the house? How many bedrooms in the house? What layout do they want? And then we source the properties to order. It's a much more effective way than going to a charity and almost cap in hand saying, I've got this property, would you like it? Because that puts us in a position of scarcity, puts the charity in a position of abundance, and it's more of a sales approach, more of a sales job, which isn't very conducive to charities. Charities work in the third sector. It's a different type of environment that they work in. It's all very client focused, very end user, as they sometimes call their clients, very end user centric. And so what we find is a more collaborative approach where we go and reach out to charities, we chat with them, we ask them how it would help them if we were to supply properties to them, what kind of properties, where in the country, where in the town, where on a street even, do they want it really close to their centre if they're operating lessons or some kind of support centre, do they want it really close, or would they rather it a little bit removed, etc., etc. And then we actually sign an agreement with them in principle to source them 1 property, 2 properties, 5 properties. And once we have that written agreement, we then go and actually source the property to them. So why do the charities enter into these binding agreements, legally binding agreements, to take properties from us on leases before they've even seen them? Well, let's look at what's actually in it for the charity. The first off is they get massive flexibility. So they can move their clients in, they can move their clients out without asking permission. They can actually be very, very changeable. So if they have an influx of people, they can let them into their property really quickly. If they have a change in their demographic of clients, if they have a group that they think would work well for their work, in terms of them all living together, they can accommodate that because they've got complete control of their property. So that's the first one. The second is they don't have to worry about their clients' access to housing benefit and funding. They can actually move someone in who has no recourse to public funds. So we work with some refugee charities, for example, where often those asylum seekers or those refugees don't have access to LHA immediately. Now, if that was a more loose relationship with the landlord, the charity wouldn't be able to move them in, or they'd have to sort out an agreement to pay the rent on behalf of the tenants, etc., etc. But because we lease our properties to the charities, they have complete control. They can put 5 people in who can't claim LHA, so long as they're obviously going to cover the lease themselves. So it gives them flexibility. It also makes them very responsive, so they can have someone turn up at their centre at 2 p.m. and have moved them in by 5 p.m. They're very, very reactive to their client base. So it makes them flexible, they can move very swiftly, they've got control of their clients, and they can also control who does and doesn't move into the property. So if someone's not towing the line, if they're not going to their house meetings with the charity representative, if they're not being a good housemate of the other clients, the charity can just move them out without checking with anyone else. And all of that adds up to the charity being able to help their clients better, because that's what they exist for. They're not there to make a profit, they're just there to support their clients as well as possible. So that's what's in it for the charity. But what's in it for us? Because it's massive, it's absolutely massive for us as investors partnering with these charities. Well, the first thing is we feel great, we get a social return. I've led this episode with 160,000 nights. I get a warm, fluffy feeling every time we tot up. We tot it up every month or so. How many thousands of nights have we helped someone to sleep in one of our beds rather than on the street? So that's massive for me. But from a pragmatic perspective, it's also brilliant. So we don't have lots of viewings. We don't have lots of move-ins and move-outs, check-ins, check-outs. We don't have inventories. We don't have all the paperwork associated with moving someone in. And you might think, oh, that's not a lot of paperwork. It actually is these days. If you miss off your EPC, if you miss off your electrical certificate, if you don't give out a critical piece of information, the gas safety certificate, even though you've got all these things, if you don't give them to the tenant, or even if you do give it to the tenant, but you forget to ask the tenant to sign to say that they've received it, that can create massive issues later on down the line. So the freeing up of that time, so not having to do all this red tape and all this paperwork, is quite a opportunity cost for us, because we can use that time in another part of the business, making more money and doing more deals. So we have a lot lighter workload when we're working with a charity. The second thing is we only have one rental payment a month. We just have the lease. So the charity pays once a month. Now, some of our properties are 6 bedrooms, 7 bedrooms. We've got an 11-bedroom property. That is 1/11th of the work, but actually it's less than that. It's actually 1/22nd of the work, because in a HMO, an LHA HMO, so a lot of these clients are going to be claiming local housing authority payments, the housing benefit. What we often have is we have the rent coming from the LHA, and then we have the bills paid by the individual. So if you've got 11 people, that's 11 people paying their rent, often from the council, which is paid very, very helpfully every 4 weeks. The rest of the world in lettings works on calendar months, but the councils pay every 4 weeks. So you have 13 payments a month, which just adds to your administrative burden. So we've got our rental payments every 4 weeks that we need to check have come in, we need to reconcile with the individuals, and then we've also got their bills payments, which we normally take monthly. So we've got our 11 bills payments a month. So that's a lot of payments to be checking, to be reconciling with the bank, to be letting the tenants know if they haven't paid their £15 bills that month, for example, or that week. Actually, £15 would be per week, so whether they've paid their weekly bills or their monthly bills, etc. Quite a lot of work, and that's all replaced by one payment from the charity. They cover all the bills themselves. The bills are in the charity's name. They also pay one lease payment per month, so it's a lot less administration for us as an investor. The other benefit to us is maintenance. So our charities are 100% responsible for internal maintenance. So that's any damage to the property, any small scuffs or broken doors, etc. The two things that we look after on all our properties are the roof. So if the roof leaks, we'll sort it, and the boiler. Those are the two things we look after. They pretty much look after everything else inside the property, which, if you think about it, is quite a lot. So that's a broken shower they'll sort, a broken utility, because it's a HMO, so it's furnished. So you've got your fridge, your freezer, your washer machine. All of that is covered by the charity, which is a lot better than a normal HMO when you've got all that stuff that you're having to provide. Now, we do normally provide it to the charity and then they look after it, but it's the maintenance of that, with things breaking, etc. They sort out all the maintenance. So those are some of the benefits. The other one is we do these leases not for 6 months, as most ASTs will be, not for a year, but typically 3 to 5 years. So a charity is taking the whole property from us for a period of 3, 4 or 5 years, which means we have 0 voids. Now those of you that have run HMOs previously, houses of multiple occupancy, will recognise that of every 6 or 7 bedrooms, often you've got one that's about to become empty, or it is empty and you're doing viewings, or it's about to be moved into, etc. So you have to factor in an element of voids. But with a lease to a charity, you can actually bank on 100% occupancy, and that's where we set our rent. We set our rent at 100% of the rooms occupied 100% of the time at the LHA rate. And the reason we can do that is because the charities are able to claim an enhanced LHA, so an elevated LHA level from the council. So they're happy to pay 100% because they're claiming perhaps 150, 160% in order to fund the support that they're giving their clients. So it's a very symbiotic relationship and it works very, very well. So that's it in a nutshell, how we run our Stepping Stones project. There's lots and lots of advantages to it. One of the biggest advantages is planning. I'll cover that in a separate video, but what people often think to themselves is that a home, an owner-occupier home or a rented home, which comes under the C3 planning class, can't be turned into a HMO in an Article 4 area, for example. Well, actually, a lot of our charity properties, a lot of our Stepping Stones properties don't class as C4. They don't actually class as HMOs at all. And so if you've got multiple tenants living in a property from different households, most people instantly think that's a HMO. It's not necessarily a HMO from a planning perspective, which can be a real godsend to the charities and a real godsend to us as investors in Article 4 areas. So I'll cover that in a separate video. But from a perspective of monetizing your properties, from a profitable perspective, from a social return perspective, from a perspective of minimizing your workload, it's absolutely massive. It's brilliant. Yes, you do the upfront work. So yes, you need to court the charities, you need to build a relationship with them, you need to build trust with them. But once you've got that trust, we've got some of our partners around the country who have spent a few weeks going out and meeting charities and phoning them up and sitting down with them. But then those charities have taken 3, 4, in some cases 5 or 6 properties over a number of years, which is fantastic. One of our partners has got 15 properties that they've built up over the last 4 years or so with different charities. And they go out to see those properties not every month, which for a HMO it'd be quite often, you'd go out every month, but they're actually going out to them every 3 months, some of them even every 6 months. Imagine visiting your HMO that's 100% occupied twice a year. That's amazing. And those of you that are thinking, yeah, but what about the HMO license? Don't you have to visit a property every month to comply with your license requirements? Yes, you do, but only if you're the license holder, not if you delegate that responsibility to someone else, and that responsibility is delegated to the charity. Our charities go out to the properties. Some of them go out every day if the level of support for their clients deems it necessary. Some of our charities go out once a week, some of them go out once a fortnight, but we can delegate those requirements so they can fulfill those requirements. They can document the fact that they've tested the smoke alarms, they've done all of the necessary things for a HMO. So if you are considering leasing your properties to charities, then it is a fantastic strategy for all of those reasons. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you'd like to hear more of our quality content on sophisticated property investing, hit the subscribe button, hit the notification bell, and I'll see you in an episode soon.